All right, welcome to the 60-second throwdown, which is neither 60 seconds nor a throwdown. I am joined by Barbara Rainey today. Barbara, are you ready for the gauntlet?
I am ready.
All right, let's start easy. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I am not a morning person. Does that qualify?
Sure, okay, that's
Okay, there you go.
good to know.
But I don't like to stay up until 2 o'clock like I used to. So
No.
2 in the morning. I do like my bedtimes.
Did you used to stay up till 2 in the morning?
Oh, I would stay up a lot of times until midnight or after because it was the only way I could get anything done when I had a house full of kids was after they were in bed. So I would stay up and do whatever I could do just to have time by myself.
What is that first thing that you would do if you had alone time? Or obviously you have a lot of alone time now, but when alone time was precious, what would be the first thing that you would go to?
Oh, I was always doing some kind of a craft or some kind of a project or some kind of something that was artsy, creative, and visual. So I would be painting a room or doing some cross stitching back when that was a thing, or quilting, or just something tactile and visual.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could only choose one. You're a beautiful visual artist. If you could only choose one of the visual arts to practice, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I can do that, but I can tell you that I am trying to get back into oil painting. That's kind of a thing that I started a few years ago, and I haven't touched it for 5 or 6 years. And I just took a workshop a couple weeks ago before the quarantine, and I'm hoping that I can pick that back up.
I cannot wait to see the fruit of that. Speaking of, what is your favorite food? If you could only have one thing or go to one restaurant right now, what would be the first thing you would go to?
That's a toughie. I think I would just say the category of fruit is probably my favorite.
Oh,
So I'm not sure that I can give you a specific one. I just
okay.
seasonally, I just love fruit.
Interesting. Are you more of a sweet or a savory person?
Probably sweet.
Okay. Are you a baker?
I used to love baking, and I did a lot of it
What
because
were
I
you
had a
known
house
for?
full of kids, and everything
Right.
disappeared quickly. But I quit doing that as our kids left home because I realized I was eating more than I wanted to. And so I have quit baking, although I baked a batch of cookies for my brother the other day and put them in the box and mail them to him
That's
because he
sweet.
lives alone and we can't visit. So
Right. Right. What would, when the kids would come home from college or wherever they were living, what would be the first thing they would ask you to cook or bake?
well, different ones had different favorites,
Okay.
but the one that I remember the most is that both of my boys, but Samuel in particular, loved rice pudding, which my mother used to make when I was
Really?
growing up, and I made it, and it basically is a custard. It's
Yeah.
made, it makes this custard with milk and some sugar, and it's yummy. And I used to make it for him every time he came home, which
I
was
can't get
really fun.
over those two words next to each other. I can't get over rice and pudding in the
I
same.
know, isn't it? It's really kind of odd. But it was one of those things that somebody created as a way to stretch food. I mean, we don't have to think that way anymore. And so if you had leftover rice, what would you do with it? You didn't just throw it away. You found a way to eat it. And somebody thought of creating a pudding out of it.
There you go. See, you
Wouldn't have
learned
been
something
me.
new.
I know.
No,
I'm not creative with food. So that wouldn't have been me that figured that out.
interesting. Because you are a creative person, but not
I
not in
know,
the
but
culinary arts per
I'm
se.
not into to cooking for my creativity because it disappears, and I need something that is visual and it lasts. It was one of the hardest things about raising kids to me was cooking because I'd spend hours in the kitchen and it was gone in 15 minutes if they even ate it, and it
And
was
then you have
just
to
so
clean it all up.
disheartening.
I am with you, especially right now. Okay,
Yeah,
speaking of right now where we can't travel, are you a beach or a mountain person?
mountains.
Where's the first place you would like to visit when you're able to travel again?
We've been talking about going west, and maybe we have friends in Montana, and we
Okay.
really love Montana, even over Colorado. The mountains aren't as big, but it's much less touristy.
Oh,
Um, Colorado gets a lot of tourists
yeah.
for their different seasons, and Montana is much more natural and rural, and that fits us more.
Interesting.
So
You
we'll
have
see.
traveled a lot. Is there somewhere that you have not yet been that you dream of going?
I want to go to Scandinavia someday because that's in
Oh,
my background, and we've never been there, so we'll see. But we have
interesting.
done a lot of traveling.
Yeah. Well, what about a favorite place you have been to?
Gosh, that's hard to say too
That's
because we've
hard
been
to.
to some really cool places. We went to New Zealand, maybe 6, 8 years ago. I don't think it's been 10. And we went with FamilyLife to teach the Weekend to Remember, but because it was so far away, it's just not easy to get to. And we decided we would stay for a week, and it is a gorgeous place. And we would have been back if it wasn't so hard to get there.
Sure. What about a favorite verse or quote?
I can tell you that I'm not very spontaneous off my head, so I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. That's fair. Well, what about, we'll go back to the travel for a second. What are 3 things other than your Bible or your husband that you take with you every time you travel or need to have with you when you travel?
Oh, that's a hard question too, really.
That's a hard one. Okay.
Yeah, it is, because it just so depends on where we're going.
True.
I do keep a travel bag that's kind of packed, and I have all my makeup, and I have duplicates of things that I use at home in there all the time, so I really don't have to think about it. So that goes with me everywhere I go, and that, I suppose, would qualify as something that goes with me. It's just that it's a combination of, certain things that it's part of my daily routine. It's just all in a bag.
I'll accept that as an answer. Okay, last one. This will be a little more of a thinker, but I think it's worth it. How do you want your kids and your grandkids to remember you? Or what is a word that you hope they say or think of when they think of you?
Well, I know this sounds really way too spiritual. And interestingly, our son and daughter-in-law, my daughter-in-law, who is really good at asking questions, she actually asked me this a few weeks ago when we were with them. And I told her, I said, I really do want my kids to remember me as a woman who knew God and loved him and wanted to please him. And I know that sounds super spiritual, but at the season of life where I am right now, that is what's most important to me.
Yeah.
And so that was my answer to them. And I think that probably still is my answer.
That sums it
I mean,
up.
I want people to know that I love them. I want my kids to know that I gave my life for them, and I did, and love them passionately and unreservedly. But I kind of think they already know that. So hopefully.
Well done. Thanks for playing along, Barbara.
You're welcome.